As a weekend hobbyist, what is the ultimate tool brand? Is it Ozito? Or is it Ryobi? At the end of this video, I'm not going to say that you should go all Ozito or all Ryobi, which overseas is known as Iron Hell. I'm basically just going to list out the instances where Ozito is better, and then I'm going to list out the instances where Ryobi is better, and so then you can make the most appropriate choice for your particular individual and unique lifestyle. And so the categories for this video is value for money, and then the varieties of tools in the ecosystem. And then I'm just going to go into a third section, which is just some interesting backstories and interesting things to know about these two brands. So first, we'll go into value for money. And so, yes, Ozito is cheaper, but cheaper does not always mean better value. Now, obviously the Ryobi tools perform with a little bit more power, but does the increase in performance justify the increase of cost of margin that it has over Ozito? Well, to analyze this, I'm basically going to look at the torque force of both of these basic drills and then put this torque force against its price, and so then you can see how many dollars you're paying per Newton meter of torque force. And if you want to know what a torque force is, it's basically a spinning force or spinny power in the drills. And so first up, we have these Ryobi. Now, this can provide 54 Newton meters of torque force, and it costs $140. And so that is $2.57 per Newton meter of torque capacity. Now, at $50, we have the Ozito, and it has a torque force of 40 Newton meters. That is $1.25 per Newton meter of force that you're getting on the Ozito. And just for scale, I'll bring up the Makita as well. And so in the Makita, it can provide 60 Newton meters of torque force, but you're paying $246 for it. And so that's a ratio of $4.10 per Newton meter. And so does that mean that Makita's taking everyone for a ride while Ozito's is clearly the best value? Well, no, and here's why. And so in the pursuit of perfection, there's always going to be a diminishing return on investment the closer you get to perfection. And just to give a real world example, just to illustrate my point, imagine that you or myself or just anyone who's never done track and field before decided that we wanted to take up the 100-meter sprint. We do our initial run, and it'll probably take us about 17 seconds. And if we wanted to improve our time from 17 seconds to 15 seconds, it'll probably take a bit of a half-hearted training program and very little effort. However, if you already are a sub 10-second runner and you want to get your time down to 9.8 seconds, it'll basically take your entire youth, a very dedicated program of both diet and exercise, and potentially some special vitamins. And so this same principle can be applied for the torque force in a drill as well. To achieve a basic level of torque force, it's pretty cost effective in order to just get to a medium level. But the more power that you can squeeze out of the tools and the more expensive materials you have to put into it, the less of an efficient return on investment you're going to get, the higher that number goes. And so basically what tool brand that you prefer is a choice of where you want to be sitting on this chart. And so as far as the tool brands, Ozito basically put themselves here, Ryobi basically put themselves here, and then you get brands like Milwaukee that basically position themselves way out here. And then in between Ryobi and Milwaukee, you sort of get these brands like Bosch and AEG. And you may say that I'm making quite a bold statement just from purely looking at the torque forces on one of their products. But in my next video, I actually do look at 6 different products across 7 different tool brands and compare their performances across both drills, impact drivers, lawnmowers, and all the alike. But for now, just to keep my point simple, I'm keeping it to the basic drill. And although thus far I've only been talking about torque force, it pretty much applies to other parts of the tools as well. I mean, for example, Ozito have 5-year warranties, where Ryobi have 6-year warranties. And so, as far as the value for money category, is Ozito a better choice or is Ryobi a better choice? Well, Ozito is the better choice for value for money, but purely because of the whole diminishing returns on investment factor as you increase in power. Ozito can basically cover most weekend handy person jobs, whereas Ryobi just has a bit of a bigger safety margin for the unexpected job. And so with that, we'll now move on to the second section of this video, and that is the overall ecosystem for its batteries and chargers. Because the whole reason why we tend to stick to one tool brand isn't because we have a loyalty to the brand. I mean, if you're being brutally honest, the whole reason that we stick to a tool brand is that you only want to buy one set of chargers and you only want to buy one type of batteries, and it's just super convenient being able to interchange the batteries between different tools. And for the sake of efficiency, it is very pragmatic. to pick a brand and stick to it. And this unfortunately is a very hard decision to make, because although you know what tools you need today, you do not know what tools you'll be needing say 3 or 4 years from now. And so with this, I've decided to look at how big the ecosystems are for both respected tool companies. And so although Ozito uses the PXC battery system, and it's designed to be able to interchange a whole bunch of other batteries from Ozito's parent company, which is Einhell, and they're associated with a whole other bunch of brands in Europe, and it's very interchangeable. However, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, it's basically only Ozito. And so to make this video realistic, I'm only keeping it to Ozito products because none of Einhell's other companies seem to be operating in Australia. And so how many products can work with the PXC battery system in Australia and New Zealand? 90. However, Ryobi have 225. And I know some of you may be watching this and thinking, oh yeah, but I can just get an adapter and then I can get my Ryobi battery to work with a DeWalt or Milwaukee, or I can get my Ozito battery to work with a Bosch or a Makita just with a simple adapter. But if you do this, you void your warranty, and also it's not a guarantee that the tool will work. So this was an avenue that I wasn't even willing to explore. Now I'll move on to the third section of this video, and there's just some interesting things about both the tool brands that you can't really put into statistics and it's interesting to know. And so Ozito was a company that started in Melbourne in 1993. And the name Ozito derives from Aussie tools, so Ozito, Aussie tools. However, in 2013 it was sold to the German tool manufacturer Einhell, and both Einhell and Ozito tools are basically made in the same factories in China just to benefit from economies of scale. Economies of scale basically meaning the more you produce of something, the cheaper it'll be for the manufacturer. And so, although Einhell market themselves as a different position on this curve than Ozito is, they do literally come from the same factories in China. Now, what about Ryobi? They started in Hiroshima in 1943, but they only started getting into tools in 1968. And whereas the Ozito tools are designed in Germany and manufactured in China, the Ryobi tools are designed in Japan and manufactured in both Thailand and China. And so now to the conclusion of this video. Should you use Ozito or should you use Ryobi? Well, let's look at the case scenarios for which both Ozito and Ryobi will be better for different types of users. And so, Ozito will be better if you use a tool, say, less than once a fortnight, and you're on a budget, and if you prefer the color red over fluo green. However, Ryobi is a better choice if, for whatever reason, you're going to need a part of the tool ecosystem that Ozito does not produce. You use the tool more than once a fortnight, money is not super tight, and you prefer fluo green over red. But the value and quality out of these two tool brands is so similar that even if you pick the wrong ecosystem, you'll still be okay because they both easily do the job. As you can see, I've personally gone down the Ozito route, and I pretty much have only been caught out once, and that's when I was using a large screw for a hardwood. If I had a small screw for a hardwood, I'll be fine. If I have a large screw for a softwood, I'll be fine, but just that combination is the only things that's really caught me out with this drill. As for Ryobi, my wife has actually picked this ecosystem, and she has no regrets as well, and we've both been using our separate ecosystems since basically before we even met. If you found this interesting, just please stay tuned for my next video where I go into a lot more detail, where I compare Ozito, Ryobi, Milwaukee, AEG, DeWalt, Bosch, and Makita, and I compare all these brands across a whole range of products. As per usual, thanks for your attention, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that other stuff that people say at the end of the YouTube videos, and thanks for watching, and see you next time.